Hello, everybody. This is Dolores Cannon again with the Metaphysical Hour. And we're back live again tonight. Last week, I had my conference here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So they were supposed to use a digital, archive show. But you've probably been hearing that they've had quite a bit of excitement out there where the BBS headquarters are in Paradise, California. That where we are in Arkansas, we've had all the floods, but out there they've had the fires. And they said they had to evacuate Paradise, California, and then they also lost all the power to the whole town. So BBS Radio was off the air last Friday, and I think they've only been back on now a few days after they got power restored. So they're having excitement out there. So it's one thing or another. So there wasn't any shows last Friday because of all that, and probably several days afterwards. Anyway, there's lots of things happening everywhere. All right, so tonight we're going to have a guest, but I do want to tell everybody my 3-day conference that I had, the Transformation Conference here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, was a big success. This is the third one that I've done, and it's mostly to showcase my authors. But we had fantastic guests, and we had the biggest attendance we have ever had. So I'm really happy about all that. And I'll probably, on another show, I'll be going over what happened and what the speakers talked about. But tonight I have a very special guest. He's an old friend of mine. And those that listen to my show know that I have lots of people on the show that I've known forever. This is another one. This is Bob Dean. And he lives out in Arizona, but he is an investigator, a UFO investigator, and he has a lot of information that a lot of people don't know about with the government and the cover-ups. But I'm going to let Bob tell about it. But I've known him for a long time, and he has had a lot of information that I think he's been sitting on for too long. Anyway, okay, Bob, but you're there, aren't you?
I'm here, sweetheart, yes.
Okay, I might have said that in the wrong way because you've always told me about a lot of things that you know that you don't usually tell people about, or you're trying to get out there anyway.
Well, Dolores, I've been speaking out, I guess you remember, what is it now, over 20 years, I guess.
Oh, yeah, we go back a long time.
And I got into this thing kind of through the back door, so to speak. I was a professional soldier for 27 years. 27 years in the military, and then after I retired in 1976, I spent another 14 years working with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management people. And I've had a high security clearance almost all those years, almost entirely my time. When I was in Europe, I had the highest classification at the time that they had, or have, even still. I had a cosmic top-secret clearance when I was at NATO SHAPE headquarters. And that's how I learned about the reality of the extraterrestrial presence. I don't like to use the term UFOs, Dolores. There are no such things.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I've been involved in this, too, for 20 years as an investigator, but that's the common term for it.
Yeah, I know. We've known for years what they are.
Yeah, but we know it also goes way beyond that.
Oh, it's way beyond that, honey.
Yeah.
For many years, I began to speak out. I guess I came out of the closet, as it were, about 1990, I think, 1990, 91.
I think that's about the time I first met you.
And I participated with Wendell Stevens' World Conference in Tucson, Arizona in 1991. And I came out of the closet, as it were, and I began to violate my national security oath. I've been speaking out pretty bluntly about things I'd learned along the way and over the years, because I felt, Dolores, that this really was the biggest story in human history. And it still is. And the more I learn, the more I'm convinced of it.
Yeah, I agree with you totally.
And I've been trying to get, out the common people, the average guy in the street, that He needs to know this. It's so damned important because it's not about them. It isn't about the other guys out there, the aliens. And I hate to use that word even.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Alien is not an appropriate term. Some of them have been on this planet, Dolores, longer than we have.
Oh, definitely. I've written about that. The seeding of the planet, they've been here since the very beginning.
But when I began speaking openly about it, I was convinced that the people needed to know. I violated my security oath. I challenged the government to put me in jail, so to speak, because I felt everybody had a need to know. They had not only a need, they had a right to know. Biggest story in human history. And for a lot of years I've been speaking out about it, and I kept thinking, being naive, I guess. I've learned a few things along the way. But I was naive, Dolores. I believed that if we prodded the government and prodded them enough and did it properly, that we could get Congress to respond to the people and hold open hearings on this thing. And have people come in and testify and tell the truth and what they've seen, what they've learned, and what they've concluded over the years. And fool that I was, Dolores, I kept thinking Congress and the government would respond. Well, they have responded. And what they've done is they've clamped down the cover-up more and more and more.
Oh. And you were hoping they would at least acknowledge it, but they haven't done anything.
I wanted them to release just the reality that we're not alone, Dolores.
Uh-huh.
We're not alone. We've never been alone. We've had an intimate interrelationship with advanced extraterrestrial intelligence from the beginnings of our history. Mm-hmm. And I felt people needed to know that because I think it would give them a little bit of insight in not only who the extraterrestrials were, but who we are. Who we are as a species. Who we are as a race. And I think that's important, that people come to terms with that. But alas, my dear, I haven't had a hell of a lot of success. As a matter of fact, I've been running into stone walls everywhere I turned. And finally, Dolores, about 5 years ago, I got so discouraged that I just said to hell with it. And I was too old for this. It was affecting my health. And I just sort of withdrew and turned myself into a recluse.
I was wondering what happened because I used to see you at everything, and I saw you in February in Laughlin, but
yeah,
that was just to come and visit,
Well, I came to visit, and I was encouraged by people while up there. It's nice to see guys I hadn't seen for 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people ganged up on me and put me in the corner and yelled at me and said, look, we know damn well you've still been doing your research, and we know that you've still been probing and digging and turning over stones here and there. Why don't you come out and talk to us again? And I thought, finally, why not? Why not? So I've accepted an invitation to speak in September at the San Jose conference in the Bay Area.
Oh, okay, because what do you have to lose, really?
Well, at my point, Dolores, I have nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. I'm 79, and I've been everywhere and done damn near everything, all those years in the military. I went through 2 wars. And I got nothing to lose but my self-respect, and I'm going to hold on to that if I can.
Well, but I'm going to come out and the military doing anything to you at this stage in your life?
Well, they gave up on me. During the first few years I came out, Dolores, I was intimidated. I was threatened. I received the phone calls, at the middle of the night. I even had the damn black helicopters flying over my house.
Okay.
Oh, I've been through the mill. And the more they did that, the louder I spoke out. The more they harassed me, the more convinced I became to to tell what I know. And I've been telling secrets now for, 20 years.
Yeah, because a lot of the investigators, they do get intimidated and they get scared and they start closing off. They don't want to talk about it.
Oh, honey, it's terrible what they do to some people. You know, I have been through 2 marriages. I had 2 broken marriages.
Yeah.
I lost a child to suicide years ago. I picked up a Purple Heart and a whole bunch of ribbons all over the years in the war. And I'm to a point, Dolores, that there's not a heck of a lot that they can do to me now. Well, they can.
Have they ever threatened to shut off your retirement pay?
Well, I even went through a bad time with that, yeah.
That's one thing, you know, they always threaten you with if you're...
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, they've got it hanging over your head, 10 years in jail and forfeiture of all pay and allowances and $10,000 fine. Well, I went through a period of time here about, I guess, 10 years ago where they had an administrative mix-up with my retirement pay. And I was practically, you know, not drawing any retirement pay at all, for God's sake, for about 2 years.
I wonder if that was an accident.
Oh, I don't think it was an accident. No. No, those things don't happen like accidents.
Yeah.
So it was somebody trying to make a point and deliver a message to me. But damn it, I'm to a point, as you say, where I haven't much left to lose, and so I've decided to come back out of the closet again, and I've learned a few things in the last 5 years, things that I think are pretty damned important.
Well, I think good for you, because I don't really think it does any good just to sit on knowledge and information. I think it needs to get out there.
Well, I'm one of those old-fashioned people, Dolores, and I think you are too. I believe that the American people, I've always held that this experiment in democracy that we're messing around with, we haven't got it worked out quite yet. We haven't got all of the wrinkles ironed out yet. But I think the American people not only have a right to know, they have a need to know. And we've got a government, my dear, and I'm afraid to say this, you know, I mean, to hell with them. We've got a government that is totally unresponsive to most of the people out there.
Oh, I agree with that. Like, look at all the disasters that are happening right now in the United States, and where's the president? He was out over in Europe. He didn't even make TV.
Dolores, don't get me started on the president.
Okay, I won't, but I mean, that's what I mean.
Don't get me started on there, or I'll start.
I agree that I don't think they really are looking at of the people anyway.
Dolores,
and a lot
the
of
government...
Times, with the government, with UFOs, I'm going to keep using that term. I don't know what else to say. But with that, you know, all they do is try to promote fear rather than understanding.
Dolores, the government the people think they have is not the government they've got.
I know that.
We've got a secret government that is operating behind the scenes, and
yes, I've written about that in my Nostradamus book.
I know you have. Yeah, I've read most of the stuff you've written, and you're a damn fine writer, Dolores.
Well, thank you.
Not only that, but the stories you tell, the material you cover, is pretty right on. And I've agreed totally with most of the things you've concluded over the years.
That's what
but we've got a government that I'm afraid is not the government that people think they've got, and I don't want to get like David Icke and start saying that we got a bunch of lizards back in the closets there that are running things and.
No, I know David Icke. I've been to his house in England, and I don't agree with the things he's saying now at all.
Well, I like David. I like him a lot.
I like him, but I think he went off the deep end.
I think he did too. Yeah, so, well, you can call them lizards if you want. I call them nincompoops. Okay. You know, that we've got a bunch of scallywags. I'm using old-time terms, but damn it, they apply.
Yeah.
We've got, what is it? I think it was Mark Twain said that we've got the longest-term full-time permanent criminal class in the world, and that's the United States Congress.
Well, I do want to tell you that on this program, they told me in the very beginning, when I started almost 3 years ago, that we could say anything we want to say. Nothing is censored. So you can say it like you really want to. No problem.
We've got a bunch of scallywags out there, Dolores.
Yeah, okay.
And they're not responsive to the people. And I think a lot of them are scared to death. This subject, they've clamped down the lid on it for so long, so tight, that I think even members of Congress are frightened about it. There are guys I've talked to before I quit traveling and speaking. I was in Washington some years back, and my kid has been a career naval officer. He's just retiring in a couple of months for 30 years in Navy service.
Wow.
And he's been a full captain. He's a senior captain. He was on the list for admiral till he came down with a little cancer there. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, I visited him in Washington some years back, and while I was out there, while he was assigned to the Pentagon, I visited a number of congressional offices. I dropped in, the usual kind of courtesy visit. Not only my own senator's office here from Arizona, but congressmen and from all over. Uh-huh. And I made my pitch, and I said who I was, and I told them what I was talking about, and good God, Dolores, it was like, talk about scurrying and scampering and running for the darkness. These guys didn't want to touch that subject with a 10-foot pole. And, I got the usual, I got the gift ashtrays and a cup of coffee and a shake hand and thank you, come in and visit us again and all that good stuff. But they didn't want to touch this subject. And I over the years, I have found out that the powers that be, that famous term, quote, unquote, and we don't really know who the hell they are because they were never been elected, had put the word out, don't talk about this mortal terror, you're in danger. Hmm. And a lot of the congressmen were scared to even get near the subject. But anyhow, I'm still on their case, and I'm still rattling their cages, and
they aren't bothering you as much anymore, are they?
Well, I think the fact that I had went public, Dolores, I spoke out publicly, and I guess I developed a bit of a reputation.
Yeah.
I'm fairly well known. I've spoken all over the country and all around the planet. I've spoken at about 12 or 13 foreign nations, and I've spoken out publicly here in the United States in about 40 or 50 separate conferences over the years.
Yeah.
And I think that my going public with my big mouth was probably the safest thing I could have done.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because nobody bothers me. And you hear all these horror stories, and I said, well, we know a lot more than most people out there, so why? Why is that?
Well, honey, what you're telling people what you've learned, and what I'm doing is I'm releasing information from classified material. You see?
Okay. But so still, I think it's the fact that we went public and became known that they can't really bother us as much. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I think so. The more you get a reputation, and the more you become known, I think that they figure that, damn it, they'll leave you alone. You're just a damn nuisance, but they'll leave you alone.
Okay. Because, we know lots of people in this field, and I think it's the same way. They just keep talking about what they know. But why don't you go ahead and tell us some of the things you've done?
I'll tell you something, Dolores, that I've been convinced of, and that is that over the years, I've finally been convinced that somebody back there, and I'm not sure who it is, wants me to do what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
I've been visited a time or two at conferences by people who had all of the indications of being government people. Mm-hmm. You could almost pick them out in the room,
Yeah, you get to where you can recognize them after a while.
And I've had guys come up to me that, who said, hey, not only did you talk about something you shouldn't have, but let me tell you something else maybe you ought to know. And I've had people, I think, in government who've come up to me and shared things with me over the years that they want out. We've known for a long time, Dolores, that there's an argument, there's a big war going on between those who want the subject to come out and those who don't want it to come out.
Yeah, that's true.
There are some who say, no, not never, never, ever, and those who say it's going to have to come out eventually, so let's let a little bit of it out from time to time, just to release the pressure, as it were.
Yeah.
And let's dribble here and dribble there and let some of it out. And I've had people who actually told me bluntly that they're rather happy with what I'm doing. So I haven't had any threats or any intimidations or any black helicopters or midnight phone calls or any of that. I haven't had any of that for years.
Okay. Well, let's tell people what you have learned, some of the things that you do about the ETs. I guess we'll call them ETs. About them, some of the information you have found that you want to share with people.
Well, Dolores, when I speak publicly, I tell people that there is really no way you can ever come to terms with this phenomenon. There is no way you can ever really begin to grasp the reality of it unless you've studied a little bit of history. Because the reality that I've discovered, and I think one of the things that is so sensitive to the authorities, is that we've had an intimate interrelationship with advanced extraterrestrial intelligence, Dolores, from the beginning of our history.
Yes.
And if you study history, you begin to realize that. It becomes very clear. It's very apparent. Throughout history, I mean, good God, the Greeks, the Romans, everybody recorded it, talked about it. We've even found cave paintings in southern France, northern Spain, of primitive people putting UFOs on the walls of their caves, for God's sake.
Yeah.
The disc-shaped objects with the dome in the middle and sometimes three legs, and that this goes back. Well, one of the sensitive things, Dolores, and I think you may have concluded this yourself, is that one of these advanced races apparently had a hand in doing a little genetic engineering on the human race.
Yes, I've written books on that.
Yes, I know you have, honey, and you're right on. And the evidence is pretty damned overwhelming that there is one of the advanced groups. The last time I was able to get any definite information, it went up for years and years. We knew of 4, and I've had people in the military people I trust, tell me that there are several dozen of them now, from different places.
Yeah.
But they had a hand in tweaking the human genome, so to speak. That they genetically had a hand in manipulating us into a higher order of species. That Homo sapiens sapiens, is what we call ourselves now, didn't exist, more than maybe 80,000 years ago. That they came here from another place, and that's another interesting subject as to where they're from, because the military concluded, Dolores, at least, 30 years ago, that they were not merely from different planets and different star systems. Some of the visitors, and that's another term that's not really applicable, they're not visiting.
Yeah.
But some of them apparently are coming through portals from other dimensions.
Oh, yes, that's another thing I've concluded, and I lecture about that also.
But here you are. You've got a species here on this planet, a very warlike species that is not quite finished yet in its evolution. And the tweaking, the genetic tweaking that they've been doing on us over the years, never really completed the job. As some of my old friends have said, the human race is a work in progress.
Yes.
And you're getting into sensitive material here, not only sociologically, but you're getting in theological areas here that are very, very delicate. Dolores, I've learned over the years, and this is a fact, I'm not going to hedge this, every major religion on this planet has been initiated and orchestrated by advanced extraterrestrial intelligence. And that's a fact. And that is dynamite to a lot of fundamentalists out there. You talk about that sort of thing with a great deal of care. Look at the wars going on right now, Dolores. Most of them are religiously oriented. Look at the Middle East. You have the Arabs wanting to kill the Jews, and then you have 6 or 7 different groups that are Arabs wanting to kill each other.
Yeah.
And, all of it, you get right down to the basics of it. It's a religious difference of opinion. Well, you start
one
telling
thing that I've written about is that they are really afraid of us because of our violence.
Well, we're dangerous, damn it.
We are, and they're trying to get us to change. They said we can never join them until we finally do get out of the violence, and that's why we're isolated over here in this part of the solar system, the galaxy.
We're out on the rim here, honey.
Keep us away from everybody else. They don't want to contaminate everybody else.
Well, if you're an anthropologist and you're going into the deepest jungles in New Guinea, you tread with great deal of care. Because some of those guys are still headhunters out there.
I know. That's why really they don't want to be involved with us.
And,
people say, why don't they land on the White House lawn? I said, they're afraid of us. They really are.
Well, I'm afraid of us, too.
The law of non-interference, too. They're not allowed to interfere.
Well,
they can watch, but they can't really come in and keep you from doing things.
That's something else that I've learned, honey, over the years. I used to believe that, what do you call it, the prime directive?
Yeah, that's the one of non-interference.
That's what the Star Trek guys used to talk about.
But it's real. It really is.
Well, I used to think it was real, Dolores, and yet I've been learning some very, very sensitive material from the military and people who are still on active duty that they've been doing quite a bit of interfering here lately. That if they have a law of prime directive, they've sure as hell not followed it because they played some silly games with us in the last 10, 15 years with our nuclear weapons.
Examples?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any examples that you could give?
Well, to give you an example, honey.
Okay.
We had a case in Minot, North Dakota, a number of years ago. I talked to the colonel, retired man who was there, and he said that big UFO came and hovered over the missile silo. Now, this was an intercontinental Minuteman, intercontinental ballistic missile facility.
Yeah.
And the Minuteman system was spread out all over the creation. I mean, all over, about 20, 30 square miles. Excuse me. Instead of having like they used to with the old Titan system, where the control launch system and the launch silo were all in the same place.
Yeah.
The Minuteman were spread out all over. They had a central control system, and then in a hub like a wheel, they had silos all over the countryside. 5, 10 miles out here or there. Well, one day all the alarms went off. This was in 1981, Dolores, in the winter. Reagan had been elected, and this was in 1981. This big, apparently, metallic disc, an enormous object, several hundred feet across, came in and hovered over one of the launch silos of an intercontinental ballistic missile, Minuteman system, with thermonuclear warheads. And it sat there for a time, and all the alarms went off. The lights went on, and guys began scrambling around. And the emergency response team got together and got into their jeeps and their trucks and grabbed their weapons, and they headed out to this silo, which was about 5 or 6 miles out in the countryside, in the boondocks. And when they got there, this enormous thing was hanging over this silo. And the lights from the perimeter were illuminating the bottom of it. And when the major, who I spoke to as a retired colonel, finally got his guys under control, they were practically, a couple of them even started shooting at it. They could hear the M16s bouncing off the bottom of the thing.
Yeah.
So it was pretty obviously metal. And he finally got them under control, and they started taking pictures of the damn thing, and then they went through the gate. The gate was sealed. The gate had never been opened, and so they got inside the perimeter. And about the time that they began to, try to take stock of what was really going on here, the thing silently moved away and just disappeared. Mm-hmm. Well, when they finally got into the silo, Dolores, they had found that the 25-ton door that slides on railroad tracks back and forth off the silo to open up the launch silo to launch the missile. That 25-ton door had been lifted up like you and I would move a box of crackers and dropped off the rails to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of got their attention. And then they got inside the silo and they found out that the missile had been violated, so to speak.
Okay.
They called back for some more response. They even brought out some scientists. They brought out the technicians. And the technicians got into the missile, Dolores. They found out that the warhead had been melted. It was a thermonuclear plutonium-uranium warhead.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the missile had 10 independently targeted missiles in the nose cone of this thing. You talk about destruction. That thing was capable of an unbelievable destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, they found that the warhead had been melted. The plutonium-uranium warhead trigger had been melted solidly. And then the technicians found that the launch control guidance system had been scrambled so badly that if that missile had ever been launched, God knows where it would have gone. Of course, it wouldn't have exploded because the warhead had been turned into a molten lump of uranium plutonium. Well, now, this is what I would call a pretty obvious lesson.
But do you know what was happening there? Because I know, because this is part of what they've told me. That's not interference. That is trying to keep us from blowing the world up. And they are not happy with us using atomic power. They're doing everything they can to keep this from happening. So that's not interference. That's part of what they are told to do.
Well, honey,
they're trying to stop
the military guys.
Yeah, what did they say about it?
They thought it was interference. Let me tell you.
Yeah, they would, because they wouldn't their little toys played with.
This event went all the way to the top, to the Pentagon. It even ended up on Reagan's desk.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out that kind of interference had been done just outside of St. Petersburg, what they called Leningrad at the time.
Yeah.
And the Russians found out about what happened to us. We found out what happened to them. And then the next thing you know, Dolores, Reagan and Gorbachev are sitting down at a summit conference. And they're talking to each other.
Okay.
So that kind of interference I rather like. In
yeah,
the military,
because that's part of what they're told to do. And I think you told me a story, wasn't it? It's when these leaders were having a meeting, something else happened?
Oh, there was supposedly a meeting, I think, at Rhodes somewhere.
You said somebody appeared at the meeting.
Yeah, they were meeting on, Reagan and Gorbachev were meeting on a battleship.
Yeah, tell that story.
Well, that is another one that I verified and found over the years that's really true. And, I think that Reagan and Gorbachev were two guys of like minds, men who realized that we were not alone. Mm-hmm. And that there was a third player at the poker table, so to speak. And they began having all kinds of summit meetings. Well, they were meeting one time on a battleship in the harbor at Rhodes, the island in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And apparently the story that was told, and boy, this was a hot potato for a long, long time. Because, they put this so far above top secret that you didn't even have a classification for it. But apparently during the meeting between Gorbachev and Reagan, a third party shows up just out of nowhere. A human-looking guy wearing what looked like a simple jumpsuit with no decorations and no rank, no nothing. Just a human-looking guy who was rather tall. He was 6'5", maybe 7 feet tall, pretty impressive guy. Shows up here in the middle of this conference room, out of nowhere, and smiled, sweetly at the guys, and to talk about the scurrying going on. All of the lesser guys are running around like crazy, reaching for their guns and all the rest of that stuff. The world's going on here. But apparently this individual smiled sweetly at Gorbachev and Reagan and said, good afternoon. I'm going to sit down and chat with you for a few minutes here. There's some things we have to talk about. And that story is that this individual, whoever, whatever he was and wherever he was from, was there to give them the word, first of all, that there will not be a nuclear war on this planet. We're not going to let you guys start it. We're not even going to let it happen. And so that's that. And so you make your plans accordingly, but we just want you to know we have the power. We're going to insist upon it. And that the picture is a lot bigger than you realize, and we're going to not let you have a nuclear war. Mm-hmm. And that's when, the process apparently of, what do they call it? We have been getting rid of missiles, and the Soviets were getting rid of missiles.
Disarmament or whatever?
Disarmament, yeah. And then the next thing you know, the Soviet Union implodes. That doesn't even exist anymore. Mm-hmm. So, I look upon that, like many of the military and the Pentagon did, as a form of gentle interference.
Well, see, this is what I've written about in my books, because this is what they said. We will not interfere unless it comes to the point that you could blow up the world. They said we cannot allow that to happen, because if it did, it would reverberate out, and it would affect other planets in the solar system. It would affect other dimensions where there are other civilizations. It would have such far-reaching effects that we cannot allow that to happen. In that case like that, they said we would have to step in.
Yes, well, I agree with you.
Good, and I believe, because I've been told this many times.
Well, the information I had learned, Dolores, confirms that completely. That is the point that they have made, that they will not let certain things happen, and I'm glad to hear that.
Because of the consequences, not just to us, but to other worlds that we don't have any knowledge of. It can't be allowed.
Well, we're a bunch of primitive savages, Dolores.
Oh, definitely.
And I'll tell you the other thing that I've concluded over the years, that is fits in perfectly with what you've written about and what you've concluded. And I've spoken pretty openly about this. But the planet Earth and the human race on it, we are probably one of the richest and ripest zoological gardens in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. Genetically, we're rich. You know, the variety of life forms on this planet and the beauty of this planet, if we stop messing around and, you know,
if we turning
it into a trash heap. We are a ripe and rich zoological garden, and when I've been speaking out publicly about that, I've seen people chuckle, and I said, yes, if you think I just said you live in a zoo, you do indeed.
We definitely do.
But we are in a zoo, and there are so many advanced, and Dolores, I've been doing a lot of remote viewing since I stopped speaking publicly.
Yeah.
And I suspect you've done some yourself. And I have traveled psychically and spiritually, remotely viewing things. And Dolores, I have concluded that there is such an overabundance of beauty and life out there that we have not even begun to grasp who we are and where we fit into this overall pattern of things. Mm-hmm. We are a part of a process beyond anything we might imagine. And we are so primitive here and so damn dangerous that it's no wonder that we're under quarantine. And that's another thing that I'd learned officially, that the military had concluded. Yes, we have been told we're under quarantine.
That's what I called it. They said we're over here isolated on purpose. They don't want us to contaminate the rest of the galaxy. Though, they said, and just get our act together and get away from the violence, we have much to offer. They said they want like our creativity and our curiosity, that we could have a lot to offer, but first we have to get away from the violent tendencies. And that goes back to, whenever we were first genetically made, it goes back to the animal nature. We have to get away from that in order to join with them anyway.
You've got a very beautiful, extensive mind of your own, and you've traveled the universe in your spirit, your thought. There is so much out there, Dolores, that I had always hoped that I would live to see. And now I'm afraid that I'm not. I'm not going to be able to hang around long enough to go out there. Oh, I think you
will. When you find passion, it keeps you going. It keeps you vitalized.
Well, I am a great believer, and I am totally convinced of the reality of reincarnation. Mm-hmm. So if I don't do it this time around, maybe the next time, Dolores.
But I still think you have many years left, especially if you're going to start lecturing again.
Well,
it lights a fire under you, and you'll get out there and start. You'll be just regenerated. I know you will.
Well, I'm going to give it a try in September. Victoria Jacks has been kind enough to invite me, and I've always been, I've always got a lot of friends in the Bay Area. So we'll see what happens. And
I'm sure you'll be welcome. They haven't forgot about you. We've always wondered what happened, but you have a lot of people out there that'll want to hear you speak again.
Well, they're going to hear me again.
You were talking about some of the new things that you have found. You've been doing some more research. Is there anything you want to tell us? I've only got about 5 more minutes.
Well, one of the things that is so sensitive...
Anything you want to tell us that you think is new?
One of the things that's so sensitive that the secret government, whoever the hell they are, they don't want out, and that is the extent of the extraterrestrial presence on the planet.
Yeah.
They're all over the place here, Dolores. As a matter of fact, of the 4 groups that I knew of when I retired, before I left the military, I used to tell them publicly that one of those groups looks so damn much like us that they could sit next to you in a theater or in a restaurant, sit right at the same table with you. You'd never know. And that always bothered the military because, you know, the military guys were paranoid. They were trained to be paranoid. The fact that there could be extraterrestrial sitting next to them in the theater or the restaurant really bothered them. When I was at SHAPE headquarters in Paris years ago, they even said, good God, do you realize they could be walking up and down the corridors of SHAPE headquarters?
Yes,
and
they can.
Another colonel said, good God, man, do you realize they could walk up and down the corridors of the Pentagon?
So, see, there is one group out there that can formulate a body to look like anything they want to.
Well, those apparently what they call the transcendentals. Those are the ones that are genetic, or not genetic, but from other dimensions. They
because
can.
Some of them have energy bodies.
Oh, they're life energy bodies, honey. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can make the body appear any way they want to. So
they don't need this old-fashioned physical apparatus that you and I both hold on to here.
But they can make them. They formulate a body to appear any way they want to, and they can maintain as long as they need to. And then they just disformulate it whenever they want to go on and go back.
But they've got facilities all over the place, honey. We learned that, and I got a lot of this from Joe McMoneagle, and I've done some of it myself.
Yeah.
That underneath a mountain in the mountains, the Pyrenees Mountains, southern France and northern Spain, there's a major facility. Underneath the desert in the middle of Australia is another major facility.
Yes, I've been out in the outback, and they said there's a lot out there that people don't know about.
Oh, there apparently is an enormous alien base underneath the desert out there.
Yeah,
somewhere
somewhere
near Alice Springs, I think they said.
Yeah, see, I've gone out where they've had these little towns where they have a lot of nightly activity going on out there.
But interestingly enough, that's interesting, very close to one of our major National Security Agency facilities at Pine Gap.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a connection there.
Very possibly.
Anyhow, there's one in a mountain in Alaska, underground in Australia, underground in the Central Africa. Let's see. Oh, there's a major facility under the sea just off of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I've heard about one underneath the water.
Yeah, and
there's some in the United States too.
Well, there are apparently two facilities, honey. We've apparently turned over a big chunk of the Nevada desert to them, and they've got a facility not too far from Las Vegas, which apparently is very close to Groom Lake. But they're all over the damn place.
Well, you know, whenever we take that bus, we go down to the Laughlin UFO Conference, you take the bus from Las Vegas down to Laughlin, there's nothing out there. It's totally deserted. And I used to say, what a perfect place to have UFOs, because there's nothing out there. And
Dolores, they apparently have city-sized facilities underneath the desert. And there's another one over, I think, in the Four Corners area. Colorado, Nevada, what is it, New Mexico. So. Anyhow, they're all over the damn place.
Yeah, see, I've written about some of them, but I know they do have bases everywhere. So, but you know, the government isn't going to admit any of that.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing that I'm taking such glee in telling people now, because the government won't admit it. And I'm telling people, look, pay attention. You know, there's more going on in this universe than you realize. There's more going on right down the street in your own damn neighborhood than you realize.
Yeah.
And I prod people to wake up and start paying attention. You know, turn off the damn tube for a while and start looking around and reading and informing yourself. And I think it's important that people do that, because I think the day may come, honey, when we're going to have a big disclosure, whether the government wants it or not.
Yes.
And I think that's probably going to happen. And if people aren't prepared for that, you talk about a paradigm.
In my work, I've not found negativity. I've found positive, that they really do care about us. They don't want us to do what we're doing.
No, they have a big brother complex on us, I think. You know, damn it, they created us, Dolores.
Yeah.
We're like family.
Well, when I go to the UFO conferences, a lot of the other speakers are into the negativity, and they're always telling me, you haven't found the truth. You haven't found the horror and the evil. I said, that's because it doesn't exist. I've found that they are here to help us, they care about us, and they're really not to be feared.
Dolores, there's one other thing that I found over my years in my travels, and I think probably this was the journey I was on from the very beginning, and that I have found that there is the reality of what I call the proof of God.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I don't worry much anymore. I'm not fearful about the future.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that, as you say in your work, that it's all going to come out properly in the end, that we're all going to grow and develop and evolve, and we're going to get beyond these wars and all that garbage. I feel very hopeful about it.
I do, too, because they've shown me what's going to happen, and it's all going to work out in spite of ourselves.
Well,
I'm watching the clock. Would you tell the listeners how they can contact you if they want to email you or call you? How do you want them to contact you?
Well, I'll tell you, Dolores, I don't have a computer. My wife does. Marcia has a business. She has her own computer, and I don't use a computer. I don't even own a cell phone.
Oh, you're really cut off. Okay.
Yeah, well, I turned myself into a recluse, literally.
But if somebody wants to contact you and ask you questions or something.
Well, you know, if anybody wants to call me on the phone, I will be happy to respond and call them back.
Okay.
And my number is 480-460-5325.
Okay, and you will answer the calls.
And my hearing's not that good anymore, but if I hear the phone ringing, I will answer, and if they leave a message on the answering machine, if I'm not right there at the minute, I'll make an effort to call them back.
Can they?
I like talking to people. I like speaking to people. I like hearing their voices.
Can they contact you through Marcia's website?
Well, they can. Yeah. She eliminates a lot of what she calls spam from time to time, and I think a lot of my old friends have tried to reach me and got spammed off of Marcia's computer.
Okay.
But
all right. So I thought if they want to get
they can reach me that way if they want to give it a try. Is at Bob Dean at BeyondZebra.com.
Okay, Bob Dean. That's DEAN.
Bob Dean at BeyondZebra.
Zebra.com. That's all one word.
Beyond Zebra. Like the little black and white animal in Africa, zebra.
Yeah. Okay.
BeyondZebra.com.
Okay, because we're going to have to sign off, but I wanted to leave that so in case they do want to call you or get in touch with you. But, Bob, I'm really happy that you did agree to do the show, and I am glad that you're coming out and you're going to keep going because the world needs you. It really does.
Well, listen, my love, let me say something before the hour is up. You're one of my favorite people.
They're going to pull the plug here in just a minute.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, honey. You're one of my favorite people, and you take care.
Okay. All right, and you take care of yourself, and I expect to see you on the lecture circuit.
Well, we'll probably run into each other again.
Okay. All right, Bob, but good night.
Good night, honey.
And good night, everyone out there.
If you enjoyed the show, check out more of our other videos, and be sure to subscribe and click the like button. Thank you for listening to the Metaphysical Hour with Dolores Cannon.